Pretty much since the day that I started using fuzzy finding within Vim, I've been using ctrlp, but I've noticed that ctrlp has a few problems, especially on larger projects where it tends to really noticeably slow down. So I've been looking for an alternative, and the alternative that most people tend to recommend is FZF-Vim. Now, FZF itself isn't actually a Vim plugin. FZF Vim is basically just a wrapper around FZF to make it work a bit more nicely within Vim. So the nice thing about this plugin is it doesn't just let you fuzzy find your files, you can also fuzzy find other things like commands and your file history and things like this. So let's just go have a look at what it can do. Now obviously my main usage of a fuzzy finder is going to be to fuzzy find my files because that's what I'm trying to replace with ctrlp. And there's a couple of ways this can be done within FZF, but the main one you're going to use is the files option. So if we just type in the command files, what you're going to see is it opens up a little fuzzy finder window in a split down the bottom here. Now, you might have noticed that opened up really, really quickly. Now, normally it won't be that quick, but because I've already run it recently, all of the files are still cached. When I first tried to run this, it took maybe 10 seconds to go through everything in my home directory and then everything in the subdirectories from that point. So obviously, if you're on a bit of a slower computer, it will be considerably slower. But if you're on a relatively powerful computer, it's going to be pretty much instantaneous depending on where you run it from. Obviously, running it from home is sort of the worst case reasonable scenario. If you tried to run it from root, it would take way longer because then it would have to go over every single file in your entire computer. But generally, you're not really going to need a fuzzy finder when you're directly within your root directory. So normally that situation doesn't really occur. The worst case real world scenario would probably be editing something in your home directory and then having to go to another file from there. So with that out of the way, let's see what this can actually do. So as you saw, we have this fuzzy finder window down the bottom here. Now, if you've never used FZF before, basically the way this works is we can start typing in something. Let's say we wanted to go to, I know I've got a script called preview. So let's just start typing in preview and see if it's going to show up. So as we can see, the third line here, this line right here, this contains the script that we're looking for. So I can scroll up to this by using my arrow keys. I think I can do Control K as well. Yes, I can. So Control K, Control J, that'll let you scroll up and down. And to the right, as you can see, we've got a preview window. Now, this isn't the default preview, but I'll show you how to customize that in just a bit. I think by default, it's just going to use cat, but I'm not entirely sure. Now, because this buffer window right here is just a new buffer, no matter how I try to open up this file, it's just going to replace the buffer here. So if I just press enter on this, as you see, it's going to open that up. But you don't necessarily have to open it like that. Let's just rerun the command. And let's say we wanted to open up, I don't know, the daemon script. So as we can see, start typing that in, and as we're typing stuff, it filters stuff out as well. So you might have a good view of that. So at the start, as you can see, it shows 27,486 out of 27,486. We start typing in letters, and it slowly filters that down. Now it's just below 26,000. Type another letter in, now it's just above 22,000. So as you're typing stuff, it's just filtering stuff out, which means that as you type more stuff in, it's going to get quicker and quicker towards the end. But even at the start on my laptop, this was still relatively quick. So let's just open this up, but this time we're not going to open it up in this main buffer window. Let's say we wanted a split instead. So if we want a horizontal split, we can press Control K. If we want a vertical split, we can press Control V. So let's say we want a horizontal split. And as you can see, that's then opened up a horizontal split with the first script at the top and the second script at the bottom. Now, I think default Vim behavior is to do this the other way around, but I like it the way I've got it configured. Now, to show you the second thing, I've had to change files because what we're going to look at now is just the files that are contained within a Git repo. So obviously, I'm going to have to be in a Git repo. If I'm not, then this command isn't going to work. So if we just run g files, what this is going to do is list the files that have been added to Git. And as you can see, we have things like my git ignore, license MD, so on and so forth. So let's just, I don't know, search for something like clean. There we go, clean full screen, and that one comes up. So let's say we wanted to open this one up in a vertical split this time. So that was Control V. And as you can see, we now have a vertical split. But let's try it with something different. Let's go and actually make a new file in here. So let's just touch and call it, I don't know, test.file. And let's go back into that script we just had and try to search for that file now. So if we try to search for it with files, it will show up. So if we start typing in test, as you can see, test.file does show up. And if we then try to instead do it with G files this time, and we search for test, as you can see, because I haven't actually added it to Git, that one isn't actually going to show up. Now, there's another version of gfiles as well that is gfiles that ends in a question mark. So let's just see what that one's going to do. So gfiles question mark. So what this one here is doing is showing the files that are showing up within Git status. So as we can see, we have test.files and lfrun because these are both scripts that I've added into my folder that contains a Git repo, but they haven't actually been added to Git. And the other ones we have in here is this one right here has been deleted, and then the ones that start with an M, those ones have been modified. So this will just let you look at the files that Git status will actually print out. So if we were to go into this folder and just run Git status, as you're going to see, so go into my scripts directory and run Git status. As you see, this file right here, this file right here, and this file right here, they are set to modified, and those match up with the files that are set to modified in here. The deleted file is this one right here, and that matches this line right here. And then the two untracked files, those are showing up as question marks. But let's change this just a bit so we can see what it's going to do with a staged file. So if I go git add test.file, and as you can see, nothing has actually changed over here, but let's rerun the fuzzy finder and then see what is actually going to happen. So gfiles question mark again. And as you can see, now that that file is actually staged, and if we run git status over here, that file right here is in the stage state, and it's in the stage state over here as well. So if you need to modify files that are showing up in Git status, this is how you'd go about doing it. The next one is buffers, and this will basically let you list out the buffers that you've opened up within this Vim session. So as you can see, we have more than just the file that I have opened right now. So we also have comp, and we have this file right here as well. So because I was testing both of these off camera and I haven't actually closed this Vim session yet, they're still showing up as buffers that I can use. So let's say we wanted to go to the comp one, and we just press enter on this, and as you can see, it'll switch over to that file. And then we can do the same thing again, and even though I don't have that file open anymore, I can still go back over to color 10-bit. So let's go back over here. Now, a similar but different one is Windows. Now, what Windows is going to do is list out the open windows you have, so they can either be in the tab that you're currently in or in a different tab, and every single one of your splits is treated as a window. So in this case, we have the color 10-bit script and the nettrue listing. So let's open up another file just so we can see what that's going to do. So open up this here, and I don't know, this one right here. Let's open it up in vertical split, sure. So if I just run Windows now, as you'll see, we have three windows now. We have the nettrue listing, we have the color 10-bit script, and we have the CRF script. So basically, selecting something in here will let you focus on that window. So let's say we want to focus on the nettrue listing. And as you can see, we've gone over to that one, or if we run it again, so Windows, and then we can go over to something like CRF. And basically, that'll just let you navigate around. Now, like this, it's probably not that useful, but if you're someone who likes to use tabs within Vim, it might actually be pretty useful to use. I don't really ever use this one, but if you like changing your color scheme a lot, you can run colors, and this is basically going to list out every single color scheme that is available for you to use. So let's go over to default, and I think that looks absolutely disgusting. I'm not even sure what that's trying to do to my color scheme. So let's just go change it back to the one I had before. So colors, and let's change it back to code dark, and that is much nicer. So this will basically let you, on the fly, easily change your color scheme without having to run the color scheme command. Personally though, I like always just using code dark, so for me, that's not really that useful of a feature. One that might actually be useful though is the lines fuzzy finding. So what lines is going to do, this will basically let you fuzzy find across all of the lines in all of your buffers. So let's say we wanted to search for something, I don't know, printf, and just find out every occasion that printf appears. As you can see, there are these 4 occasions here, so let's go over to, I don't know, this one right here. And where's that going to take us? So that took us over to the CRF script. And then we could run it again. So once again, run lines. And let's say we wanted to search for something in this file right here. So we know that 255-R appears, so 255- and as you can see, first result is now the one we're looking for. Now something interesting does happen here. So it's not actually going to jump you to that line within that buffer. What it's actually going to do is replace the current buffer you're in with the file actually containing that line and then jumping to that line. So as you're going to see, we've now got 2 instances of the color 10-bit script, and we've jumped over to this line right here. So this one isn't that useful. The one you're probably going to want to use is the B-lines version. So let's just close out of this buffer because we don't actually need it. and let's open up Beeline. So what Beelines is going to do is limit you to the current buffer that you're in. So let's try out a script that's a bit longer. So maybe not even a script. Let's go over to something like my ZSHRC file. I know that file's a bit long. So if we run Beelines in here, as you're going to see, it's going to be very similar to what we had before, but this one is just limiting us to the buffer that we're currently in. So this one I find to be a little bit more useful. Let's say we wanted to search for something like, I don't know, ship. As you can see, I have a bunch of spaceship variables. So let's say we wanted to jump down to, I don't know, this one right here. So this is useful if you know that something is contained within a file, but you're not entirely sure what the rest of the line is. Now you might be saying, well, if you were to do something like, say, write slash and then search for ship, isn't that going to give you the exact same result? Well, in this case, yes it is, because the word ship actually does appear within the document. But searching for ship within a fuzzy finder and within slash is a little bit different, because the way that slash works is a regex search. So it's going to look for a specific pattern. Whereas with a fuzzy finder, what it's going to do is say, okay, I have the 4 letters S, H, I, P. I don't care what's in between them. As long as I have them in that order, that's going to be something that matches. Now you can emulate the same thing with a regex search. Basically what you would say is you want to look for S dot star, H dot star, I dot star, P dot star. And that's going to work in the exact same way. So now we don't care what's in between the letters, as long as we have those 4 letters appearing in this sequence. Now there's a couple more I do want to have a look at, and the first one is history. So what history is going to do is basically list out a file history. So this is the history of files that I've recently opened. So as you can see, I've got color 10-bit, CRF, comp, clean full screen, and then up here it's mainly going to be VimWiki stuff. So let's say I know that I very recently opened up my preview script. So what I can do is I can start typing in preview, and as you can see, there's a second script I also have called preview. So in this case, what I can do is just scroll up to that and then open up that script. So another one that you might want to use is history, but this time ended with a colon. So what this is going to be is your command history. So as you can see, we have history with a colon on the end, we have history, beelines, quit, lines, so on and so forth. So let's say I wanted to rerun the Windows command. So if I start typing that in, then that's the only result that's going to appear. So let's just press enter on this, and as you can see, it went and reran the Windows command. So I can just quit out of this now because I don't actually need it. And the last history command I want to show you is search history. So if we do history and then slash, as you're going to see, we have ship that I searched for and actually made a mistake off camera that you didn't see. But I've also searched for things like \a, vol, poly, so on and so forth. So let's say I wanted to research for, say, poly. And as you can see, as I started typing that in, it then showed up. So let's just research for that one. And this file doesn't actually contain any instance of the word poly. Now the last one you might care about is commands. So what commands are going to let you do is basically fuzzy find over all of the commands you currently have installed for Vim. So as you can see, there is tons of things in here. I've actually got 701 commands. And let's say we wanted to run something like vexplore, which is one of the nettrue commands. And as you can see, I started typing that in. Then I can press enter on this, and it won't automatically run it just in case we selected the wrong command, because if it auto ran it and it was the wrong command, that could actually do something damaging. So now that the command is down here, if I press enter again, it's actually going to run the command. And as you can see, that then went and ran vexplore. So this is by no means a full list of commands that are available for FZF-Vim. You can get to a full list on the GitHub page up here. So where is it? There it is. So we have things like AG, RG, marks, so on and so forth. And there's also a list of them available within the Vim documentation for FZF. So if we search for FZF-Vim, and let's just autofill it. So let's go down to the commands section. And as you can see, same commands we just saw before. So AG, RG, marks. And there's also some integration with things like ultisnips and fugitive.vim. Now, I'm not using those plugins myself, but if you are, then you can go and use those integrations yourself. So that leads me into the next thing I want to talk about, which is customizing your FZF commands or even writing your own custom ones. So I would recommend going and reading through the example on the GitHub page or in the FZF-Vim documentation built into Vim, because I don't really understand this too well. Basically what I know is that in this array right here, I can basically pass in arguments to FZF, and that's pretty much what I've done. So over in my Vim config over here, basically what I'm doing is I'm passing in the -- preview option, and then I'm passing in my preview script, And then basically to pass in the argument for the file, you'll pass in 2 curly braces, and that's where the argument is going to sit. So any arguments that you want to pass into FZF can be passed in this array. So as you can see in the example over here, things like layout reverse and info inline are being passed in as well. So go have a look at the man page for FZF for the arguments that you can actually pass into this, or go check out the video that I did on FZF. I'll probably have it linked up on that corner if I remember to do so. So moving back over to the config file for a bit, I would really recommend that any of the commands you're going to use on a frequent basis, just set them to a key binding. So in this case, I've got G files bound to Alt-G, and I've got files bound to Alt-Z. So these are the 2 that I mainly use. The other ones I don't use that often, so I don't really feel any need to put them on a key binding. And the reason I've got them on an Alt key is because within Vim, the Alt keys are generally pretty free to map on. Most plugins don't really touch them, and I don't think there's really anything that Vim natively uses that uses the Alt keys that isn't also on something like Control or just a single key press. So the Alt keys are a pretty safe way to actually map stuff. So when it comes to the options for FZF-Vim, there's not really that many because most of the configuration is done through customizing your commands. So pretty much the only ones you have is disable the preview window, set where you want the preview window to be located, and then there's a couple of variables for the plugin integrations, and that's pretty much all you get. And then to cap off the video, I'm going to talk about installing FZF-Vims. So there's 2 things that you can install in your Vim plugin manager. One of them is obviously going to be essential. So the one that's essential is actually installing the Vim plugin itself. So the example here is done with Vimplug, but if you're using something like Vundle or anything like that, just convert this command to work with whatever plugin manager that you're using. And the other command in here will basically make it so your Vim plugin manager will go and install FZF. Now, I'm not a big fan of doing it through this method. I would recommend that this line just gets done by your regular package manager, and then just have this line within your Vim config, because you probably shouldn't have your Vim plugin manager managing your other applications. So I think that's pretty much everything for this video. Now, ever since I started using FZF-Vim, I've actually been a really big fan of it. It is so much better than using ctrlp. And another thing I want to talk about is I haven't actually been using ctrlp to run ctrlp for a very long time, because in Alacrity and also in ST, I had my paste key set to ctrlp as well. So there was going to be a bit of conflict between the 2 of those. So what I did is I moved it over to Alt-Z, so it's not just because I'm using Fuzzy Finder that I've got it bound to Alt-Z. I've had it set up like that for quite a while just to avoid that conflict. So I think that's pretty much everything for me, but before I go, I want to thank my patrons. So a special thank you to Joachim, Craig, Nathan, Andrew, Peter D, Road, Tony, Donald, and Zilva. If you want to join the Patreon, there'll be a link to that down below, as well as my Amazon affiliate links where you can buy the gear using this channel, or anything else you want, and I'll get a small kickback for it. Also, remember to check out my podcast. That is Tech Over Tea, available on Library and YouTube, and the audio version available wherever you listen to audio podcasts. Also, remember to check out this channel, available on Library, BitTube, and BitChute. And remember to smash the like button and leave me a comment down below. And remember to subscribe and ding the little bell icon down below as well. So I think that's pretty much everything for me, and I'm out.